Hey everyone, it's Diana from Adventures with Art, and today we are talking about 14 digital drawing exercises that you can do if you're a beginner or if you just want to refine your skills and get into some good habits of doing basic drawing exercises. But before we get started, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, make sure you come back to Adventures with Art for more great art tips just like these. All right, let's get started. So the first exercise is to draw matching lines. This one is actually really tricky to do. I love doing, realistic things and can draw, shapes and objects as they look, but yet when I draw matching lines, I seem to have a problem. So this is a really great exercise in working on precision and also on control and also on just noticing what you're doing. When you've already drawn a line in one way and then you have to think about how did I do that and how am I going to match it? It can just be a really good way to gain control over your stylus, especially when you're just beginning and it can feel kind of funky to be drawing on an iPad or a tablet for the first time. So this is a really good one. It's quick, it's simple, and it will help you build some accuracy with your drawing. Number two is to play around with brush pressure and thickness. So it really depends on what brush you're using. If you're using Procreate, which is what these exercises are based on, you can use any digital drawing program really. But in Procreate specifically, you're going to want to pick one of like the paint brushes or one of the inking brushes in order to get this effect. The pencils don't do this necessarily because pencils in real life don't really do this. But what can be really cool about the inking and the paint brushes is that they're really sensitive to pressure. So you can get really thin lines if you're going really lightly. And then as soon as you push down, you can get these really nice thick lines. And so it can be a really great exercise to play around with how to change up lines even midline while you're drawing them. What happens if you're start a line pushing lightly and then you suddenly push down? How does that change? That can be a really great thing to practice and also can give you a lot of control over what you're actually doing with your lines and give you a lot of neat variations in the types of lines that you're drawing. All right, number three, do a blind contour drawing. This one is hard. You're not going to get anything beautiful from this, but it can be a really good exercise. And there's a lot to say out there that says that blind contour drawing does help improve your art skills. And part of why that is that you're really forced to draw what you see. A blind contour drawing is basically not looking at your tablet at all, simply picking an object, maybe in front of you or grabbing an object and then only looking at that and not looking at your tablet the entire time you're drawing. It's a really good exercise in really drawing what you see because you have no choice. You can't really put in any other presumptions about what the object should be or what it should look like or what types of lines you should be using when you don't even have the choice to look at your iPad or your tablet. So this is also a really good one. It also kind of just mentally helps you just let go of perfection. There's no way that this is going to be perfect or even all that great at all. This is not something you probably want to hang on your wall. And so it really is a good way of just letting go and knowing it's going to be okay. And that at the end of the day, you're creating art and sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not, but you're always practicing, you're always working on those skills. So I really do like this exercise. Number four, color in the lines. This is a great excuse to color. Coloring is not only relaxing and a great stress reducer, but it also helps you with your precision, especially if you get complicated ones like these. You might be thinking, coloring, that's not very hard. And you're right, it's not all that complicated. But having an idea of control is also just really helpful, which is what we keep going back to, which is such a big thing with art in general. And especially when you get started with digital art is how do you control your materials in this new kind of medium, right? And so coloring in the lines is somewhat of a challenge when you're using a new slippery, iPad surface and a stylus that is nothing like your normal colored pencils. So I would say give yourself an excuse to relax and to color. You can find these coloring pages for free online. I got this one from justcolor.net. I'll put a link for it down in the show notes. They're really complicated and beautiful and also fun. The other thing that I really like about coloring is that it forces you to think about color because there's a lot going on here. And you need to be able to plan out your colors appropriately so that they match and so that they're spaced out appropriately and all of that. And so it's a really good test on how to plan out your colors and how you're planning to use them. Number 5 is also about colors, but this one is not about a lot of colors. This one's about just a few colors. This one is about choosing 3 colors and only use those colors for your design. This can then be a really good test of what colors work together, because sometimes when you use a lot of colors, there's less focus on like which individual colors don't work or which ones go together really well. There's less of a need for that harmony between them sometimes, because if it's a whole rainbow going on, then you have a whole rainbow going on. But having to pick 3 colors and having that be the only 3 colors in your piece of art, there's going to be a lot of focus on those colors. And so they need to be correct. And so it helps you figure out what colors really go well together and kind of develop your own palettes. What colors do you like? What do you want to gravitate towards? Given that, with digital art, you have every single color available to you, not even just of the rainbow, but like everything in between. So not just your standard, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, but everything within that spectrum. And so though that's an infinite amount of choices for colors, which you may not have had before. And so you're going to have to play around with like, what are these new colors? Like, what kind of colors do I like together? What colors did I not even really know about because I've never had a colored pencil in that color? And so really just play around and see what goes well together. So I think this is a really good exercise to do a piece of art with only 3 colors and picking 3 colors that you like, that are new, and that really go well together. The next one is to do a 1-minute challenge. I love 1-minute challenges. I think they're a really great way to just loosen up. And even, if you're not looking to do exercises, but even just to warm up for a session of drawing, it gets your creative mind going. It gets, the stylus to the iPad and really just gets things going. It doesn't allow you to have any artist block and just puts you on the right path towards having a good art session. We keep talking about how can be a bit of a switch to go from pencil and paper to an iPad and a stylus. It feels really different. What I like about the 1-minute challenge is that you just forget that. Just go for it. See what you draw. Draw for an entire minute. And just see what happens. Another tip that I have, the reason why I have this screen protector right here is that this made a world of difference to me. I love it now, but especially when I was just beginning with digital art. It's a screen protector that feels like paper. I mean, obviously it doesn't feel exactly like paper, but it has a rougher texture so that when you are drawing, you have a little bit more of that grip. It's a little like fine, grainy kind of texture. And so it gives you a really nice kind of catch for your stylus instead of having of just really slick, smooth iPad screen. So I really suggest this. There's a link for it down in the show notes. It's called the Like Paper iPad Screen Protector. It can be a really huge help and kind of get you over that hurdle of, ooh, this like feels a little different. The next one is do a 5-minute challenge. This one is less about drawing quickly, but more about doing it consistently. There's a lot to be said for consistent practice. And this goes back to the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hour rule, which everyone has heard of. But, since he came out with that, people have said it's not just about doing 10,000 hours, it's about intentional practice. So making sure that every time you sit down to practice a skill, you are very intentional about it and you are focusing on the right things. And so this challenge is like, can I spend 5 minutes every single day practicing in a way that is meaningful and on something that I actually want to be improving on and that I want to see growth and gain in? That can be really important. And if you can create a habit of of drawing even 5 minutes a day, you're going to get better really quickly. Think about how, over the course of a year, that's a lot of drawing time that you've fit in if you even just draw 5 minutes a day. And the thing is that, 5 minutes is the minimum, but a lot of times once you get started, it's the starting that's hard. It's once you get going, it's easier to just keep going and to have that 5 minutes turn into 30 minutes and turn into a really productive art session. So I would say if you can just get in the habit of saying, you know what, I'm going to sit down for a minimum of 5 minutes every single day and let that could be it, just 5 minutes, or you could let that be more. And you'll really see your art skills improve. Okay, this one is another one that is tricky for me personally. I don't know. I love to draw portraits, but for some reason, like I can't draw symmetrically very well. Drawing symmetrically is important, especially for portraits. I think I tell myself that, no one's perfectly symmetrical. And so if I end up with one eye that looks a little different than the other, then that's fine. But symmetry can be important in art, and luckily Procreate has like some really handy dandy symmetry tools that will do it for you, which is nice, but we're not going to go that route. We want to actually learn the skill in this exercise. So what I suggest is just draw a line down your canvas and then draw something on one side and try to replicate it on the other. It's a good way in noticing shapes and trying to match what you've done before, which is really hard to do, and just really great practice overall. All right, number 9, this one's fun. Experiment with different brushes. So in the same way that like when you dive into digital art, you're going to have access to an insane amount of colors that you never had before as an artist. You're also going to have an insane amount of brushes and materials that you've probably never had as an artist. Even if you've had an extensive art supply collection, it's hard to find some of the amazing brushes that are in like Procreate, for example, and the custom ones that keep coming out all the time. So play around with them and see what they can do. From the spray painting ones to the different types of pens and paint brushes and everything else, the markers are just, it's really fun. So get in there and experiment with different types of brushes. You may find that there's one you've never even thought of using and you actually really like using it. So again, this one is just a fun excuse just to mess around in Procreate or whatever digital drawing app you're using. This one, along the same lines, experiment with mixing brushes. So similarly, a lot of us will tend to do a drawing or a painting and we'll use maybe one or two different types of mediums possibly, or just one, depending. A lot of times I just don't want to go get more supplies. And so I'm like, if I'm doing a pencil drawing, this is great with my pencil. I don't want to go grab any paint or anything like that. And so I used to tend to just stick with a lot of, what I set up for. That's what I'm going to use. But what's great is that, with your digital drawing programs, you can change your brushes instantly. And so you have a lot more opportunities to like mix mediums, quote unquote, because you can just instantly change between your brushes. So you can go from using a pencil brush to an ink to a paintbrush and see what it's like to kind of mix them up and what kind of results you can get from that and what it feels like. There's some amazing professional Procreate artists and digital artists who use so many different types of brushes all in one piece of art in a way that can be pretty incredible. So try that out and see how that feels. All right, play around with layers. This is another one that's so unique to digital art and that we never have to experience in traditional art. You have a painting, you have your canvas, and that's it, right? You have one canvas. But in digital art, you can have layers, like tons and tons and tons of layers. And you can do a lot of unique things with these layers, like draw on top of other ones and put them in groups and copy them and put them in other pieces of art altogether. There's so many things you can do with layers, and also it's just really important to understand layers because you can get in trouble if you don't understand layers from the beginning. You might learn the hard way that there are certain things you should be doing with them, like having multiple ones for things you need to change or that are different elements, or the difference between the combined down setting and the merge down setting, which I have a video on that. And it's very important to know the difference between the two of those settings. And you don't want to learn that the hard way. So what can be good is to have a piece of art that you use just to experiment with layers, so that way you can make mistakes without it actually affecting your art. Okay, number 12, shade something in black and white and then in color. Um, what's really great about Procreate is that there are ways to make it work like traditional art. I mean, of course, you're using your iPad and a stylus, and that's always going to be kind of strange and not, just a pen and paper. But depending on what medium you're using, you can make it really seem and function like traditional art. So, for example, this black and white one, that was just pure pencil on Procreate, and I was able to figure out how to use the same exact techniques with Procreate that I would use, traditionally. Even so, it's a little bit different because you have access to different types of things, right? Like the eraser works differently; it erases everything cleanly, which is crazy and something you wouldn't expect in traditional art, to make a super thick black line and to just be able to wipe it away instantly. Pretty cool. So there are going to be some nuances that you're just going to have to get used to. And how does the image look, under a illuminated iPad screen, as opposed to like a static piece of paper that doesn't have that illumination behind it, right? It's going to look a little bit different. And so, play around with that. Do something in black and white, and then definitely do something in color. Colors can work differently on a digital platform than they do in person, or traditionally. Because we're just using them differently. We're not mixing them in the same way. We're not applying them in the same way. So the shades are going to be a little bit different, and the tones are going to be a little bit different. And you're going to have to figure out different strategies to achieve the results you're going to want to get. So it's really good to just kind of practice your shading in both black and white and in color. Next, carve out some time to take a Skillshare class. This is less of an exercise, but also like if you decided that, you know what, I want to do some digital drawing exercises, and in doing so, I'm going to like do a lesson of a Skillshare class every day, you're going to be so on top of it and do so well. Skillshare is where I first learned how to use Procreate. I went to the Apple store. I had saved up to buy an iPad. I really wanted to learn digital art. Bought my iPad and my Apple Pencil and sat down, downloaded Procreate, and was just lost. And so the first thing I did after that was I went and I signed up for Skillshare, and it was a game changer. They have professional artists, illustrators, teachers, Procreate users, digital art users that are so good at what they do, and they know how to teach, and they know how to teach beginners. At this point, I'm taking classes from beginning all the way, there's a lot of advanced classes that I'm not even at that level yet, but they really have something for everyone. And what I love about them is that they break everything down into really, really digestible pieces. So like I said, you could sign up for a Skillshare class and then just do a lesson every day, and you're going to get better. And you're going to learn the things you need to learn in order to get good at Procreate and at digital drawing in general. And so I would really highly suggest this. Luckily, they do have a free trial. And so, you can sign up for the free trial, take as many classes as you can. You have unlimited access to all their classes during their free trial. See how many you can take, and then just if you need to cancel it before the trial is up, that's okay. You won't end up being charged. But it can be a really great way to have a structured way of learning new digital drawing skills. That's really effective. Personally, it was really effective for me. And given the popularity of Skillshare, it seems to be very effective for a lot of other people. So that link to the free trial is down in the show notes. Make sure to go check that out, and even just browse all the Procreate classes and digital art classes that you can take. All right, so our 14th one is less of an exercise as well, but I think it's also really important. Follow 5 new digital artists. It's really important to stay inspired, and I think it's also really important to be in touch with the community and what we're aspiring to. I think a lot of us, our social media feeds end up becoming a mix of helpful things, unhelpful things, a time suck and drain. And I think what can be really cool is to curate your social media feeds to be a source of artistic inspiration, right? So if every time you open your Instagram, you're seeing the art of some of your favorite artists or from new artists you're discovering, like how inspiring is that? Like that's useful, right? That's like a good way to use social media to like further your own knowledge and your own inspiration and your own creativity. So I really say, like, take advantage of those opportunities to be able to connect with other artists. You know, say hi, tell them how much you appreciate their work, and really build those relationships. And also just, you know, spend some time scrolling through their stuff and see what you can gain from them. The other thing that I really like about, you know, Instagram and how it functions is that a lot of artists have found it really easy to make tutorials. And so you may end up finding that you find a set of artists that you really enjoy that have tutorials, so you can learn right there like how to do certain things that they themselves use in their own professional art. It can be a really great learning opportunity and a way to kind of shift social media into something that can actually be helpful with your art. All right, so those are my 14 tips. Again, please hit that subscribe button, keep coming back. Check out the show notes. You'll see the Skillshare trial. You also see a link to the iPad screen protector, and also to this article if you want to dive into it more and kind of really follow along with these exercises and doing them for yourself. All right, thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.